Today we are going to be talking about the speech preparation process. I suggest that you read the readings posted to our Blackboard course before you dive into this lecture, but I wanted to go ahead and film this so that you had a little bit more information about how to go about preparing a speech for your course this semester. So let's start by sharing the screen. And whoops. First of all, I want to really emphasize the importance of speech preparation. You know, we prepare to give presentations because communication occurs transactionally. This means that we're constantly exchanging information back and forth, between each other, whether or not we're intending to. And think about, some time whenever you walk up to a friend and they kind of have a sour look on their face and they may not even know that you're there. They're communicating information to you about their mood, their feelings, maybe you have an idea of something that's going on. And they may not be meaning to communicate that. So whenever we do plan a preparation or plan a speech that's prepared, that is a time whenever we are intentionally trying to communicate. And it makes it even more important that we deliver the information that we are trying to convey in the way that we're trying to convey it. Speakers who are better prepared are less likely to make mistakes. The more preparation you have, the less likely it is that you'll say something you don't mean to say. So I have a little example here. This is a clip from the Miss Universe 2015 pageant, and I'm not going to set it up because it's pretty crazy what happens. Okay. Steve Harvey's just Columbia
I have to apologize. The first runner-up is Columbia. Miss Universe 2015 is Philippines.
Ouch. How awkward was that for me? The rest of the video continues on where she's giving they have to take it away from the other person who they thought had won. Now, what happened was that they had prepared for this moment whenever Steve Harvey would be announcing the winner, but they didn't prepare the way that the presentation actually happened. So it was a lack of correct and accurate preparation that really led to that mistake. And man, I just feel so bad for that poor woman who had to then take off the crown in front of everybody. Pretty awful moment. Okay, so what I'm going to explain to you now is what is called the incremental approach. And the incremental approach is effectively a way of thinking about your speech preparation as just taking it one small piece at a time. So I'm going to quickly go through this. If you've got questions, please feel free to ask me and via email. But I don't want to make this video too long, and we are going to talk about some of these other things in greater depth. The first thing you want to always do whenever you're preparing a presentation is think about audience analysis. What's the audience going to be like? What are their backgrounds? What are some potential interests they may have? You can do that research in a number of ways, but you want to use whatever knowledge you have to then anticipate how your audience is going to feel about what you're talking about. For example, I know that a lot of my students feel anxiety about giving a presentation, so this topic might make them feel a little uneasy, but hopefully will also make them feel more confident given that they're now going to have more information about how to effectively prepare for a presentation. After you've done your audience analysis, and that is something that you can do throughout the entire process repeatedly, you want to think about topic selection. Some situations your topic is going to be chosen for you. Some situations you're going to have more control over what you want to speak about. The idea here though is to brainstorm your ideas and kind of start narrowing them down. You could do that based on thinking about what will the audience be interested in, or what am I supposed to have to talk about today? Another step, step 3, is to determine what's called your rhetorical purpose. Your rhetorical purpose is effectively the big, broad strokes of what you're doing in a speech. Typically, this is to inform, to provide information about a topic, to persuade, to try to convince someone to change their mind about a topic, or to mark a special occasion, something like a toast, or a eulogy, or an acceptance speech. So that's kind of the big 3 rhetorical purposes. Again, in some situations, this may already be dictated for you, but you want to take some time to really think about what you're trying to do. After you've done that, then you can go to step 4 and create a thesis statement. A thesis statement is one concise sentence that answers the question, what do you want your audience to get out of your speech? Your thesis should communicate, I would like to inform my audience about how to prepare for a presentation, or I would like to persuade you today to take lots of steps in the speech preparation process so you'll be more effective. Whatever that is, you're answering the question, what do you want your audience to get out of your speech? And that is one guiding sentence that really shapes the entire speech for you. From there, once you have that thesis, you know what you're talking about, you know why you're talking about, you can start to determine the main points of the speech. So think about it this way. Every main point needs to be something that will benefit your audience or something that will interest them. Additionally, every main point of your presentation should relate directly back to the thesis. If, for example, you're giving a presentation about how to prepare for presentations, you would not want one of your main points to be about the Star-Spangled Banner. You know, great topic, not directly tied to the thesis of that presentation. So make sure that the main points you come up with can all relate back to that thesis. Let's move on to step 6 here. Once you have your main points, you're kind of thinking about them, step 5, step 6, step 7 can all kind of interchange and blur together. You can be kind of working on these simultaneously, but you need to start thinking about supporting materials. Supporting materials are the parts that go underneath each main point. So if you're going to talk about how to replace a tire, or no, I'm sorry, if you're going to talk about how to cook a meal, and let's say one of your main points is prepare your workspace, prepare your cooking space. What are the things that you do to prepare that cleaning space? Make sure you've got all your necessary tools and equipment. Make sure you have the ingredients. Make sure you have cleaned surfaces. Those are supporting points or supporting materials that go underneath the umbrella kind of main point of preparing to cook. Right? So what you're doing here in this step 6, by generating those supporting materials, sometimes you just think about what you need to talk about. What do you need to say? You can also conduct research. You should conduct research, I should say. Research is effective in any presentation that you do. It makes you more credible. It makes you feel more confident, and it demonstrates some knowledge and preparation for the presentation. While you're doing that research, make sure you keep a list of information, your reference sheet, your bibliography, because it's hard to sometimes remember, oh, where did I get this piece of information from? And then have to go back and find it. Now, again, as you're working on main points and supporting materials, you can be outlining and organizing your speech this whole time. You need to make sure every presentation should have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. The introduction is the beginning, the opener, introducing the topic. The body is the bulk of your presentation. That's where all your big main points would go. The conclusion wraps up the presentation and hopefully leaves your audience with thinking about something, kind of that stands out from the presentation. You also want to ensure you're using these two properties, subordination and coordination. Subordination refers to hierarchy. So some pieces of information in your presentation are going to be more important than others, and that is totally fine and should be the case. For example, you may have 3 main points, and then you have a lot of other supporting points that go underneath that. That is subordination, that's hierarchy, that some things belong underneath another concept or point, right? Now, coordination is a term that refers to trying to keep things as equal and balanced as possible. The idea here, you don't want to have a main point that's like, got 4 or 5 subpoints underneath it, and then within each of those subpoints, there's 4 or 5 subpoints, and then the rest of your speech is just little tiny bits. That's not really a balanced presentation. Really what you want to talk about is just that first main point. So coordination is making sure that your points are balanced, that they carry about the same amount of significance with each other. Of course, throughout your presentation, you should be incorporating transitions. These are just sentences that connect one part of your presentation to the next. You can do this in your outline. You can do this when you're thinking about organization. Now we're getting near the end here because you've outlined, you've come up with all these ideas. So it's really time to put the fine-tuning details on. Start thinking about your delivery. How am I going to deliver this? Are there certain points that I really want to emphasize? Do I want to emphasize that with nonverbal delivery skills? Do I want to emphasize that with my verbal delivery skills, including word choice? How can I most clearly communicate what I'm trying to say? The last thing you should really consider are your presentation aids. Your presentation aids are not a substitute outline. Your presentation aids are there to simply supplement what you are saying. And then last, but certainly not least, you want to practice, practice, practice. I can't overstress this enough. If you have any amount of anxiety about giving a presentation, practicing is going to be one of the best things you can do to help with that. Last thing I want to talk about as you're beginning to think about your speech topics, where do you start? A couple of strategies for how to begin that preparation process, how to even start. You want to do some general brainstorming. I think all of these kind of 4 categories here relate to brainstorming research, right? So go and Google, speech topics, or go find the list of topics that I've posted, or just read a newspaper or a news site. What are some topics that are subjects that you could speak about? You could also do brainstorming. Brainstorming is a formal activity, is where you set a specific amount of time and you come up with as many ideas as you can during that time without any form of judgment. There are no good ideas or bad ideas when brainstorming. They're just ideas. From there, you've generated a huge list of ideas that can help you get started. Word association is another form of brainstorming. However, typically what happens here, you start with one word at the top and then think of as many different words or concepts or phrases that relate directly to that first word you started with. Mind mapping takes that same principle but extrapolates it beyond. Let's say you start your mind map with the term cat. And from there, while you're mind mapping, you think of cat leads to pets. And then you think pets leads to dogs. Then dogs may lead to a couple of different ideas. It could lead to exercise because you have to take your dog and walk it. It could lead to training because people want to potty train their dogs. It could lead to fur, right? Well, beyond, you can really then go anywhere with mind mapping. Think of it as kind of looking like a spider web in some instances, where a word association may look more like a list of ideas, where you've got one thing at the top. All right, so this is my end of the presentation here. Again, I hope that this is just something that's helpful for you in terms of thinking about how to begin your own speech preparation process. If you've got any questions, if you want to discuss this further, if you want to bounce an idea off of me, I'm always happy to help talk about ideas with you. Let me know if you've got any questions, and I will see you then.